Hello everyone, my name is Sofi. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to balance the basic bodice front and back with each other so they fit properly and perform properly. Balancing the front and back with each other is crucial because when we stitch them to each other, we want them to act in a certain way. For instance, in this image you can see that it describes how the neckline should fit. If there is a problem, we should be able to see it. And when we put them together, the armhole should act properly. It should look like a oval shape, relaxed, like a horseshoe shape. It shouldn't have gaps like that, neither at the front nor at the back. The shoulder seam has to be right at the shoulder line of the dress form. Then, if we're not careful, we didn't balance properly, we might see this kind of problems around the armhole. That means it should be removed, or we remove it in a certain way, and we can see that if we not balance it properly, we can have the same problem in the back armhole also. Meanwhile, we want the side seam to be matching. The dress form side seam line should run parallel to it, and the waistline should go properly also in its place. Which means, if I put my front and back bodices next to each other, you can see that my side seams are not matching. Most probably there is some problem at the shoulder when I put them together after I close the darts down. And most probably there are some embedded problems in the relationship between my back armhole and front armhole, or my necklines for that matter. In order for me to start balancing them, I need to copy these two blocks on a paper. So let's say if I want to copy my front foundation on a piece of dotted paper, I need to place my center front line matching with one of the lines, and by holding my pencil 90 degrees to the paper, I pretty much copy the whole entire block, and definitely mark my apex, remove the block, and you can see that here I already copied my foundation and drafted my dart legs to the apex. The same thing is done for the back, where I copied my back foundation, mark the dart tips here. I should mention that in the back we don't have apex, because apex applies for the highest point of the bust. So since there is no bust at the back, so there is no apex. And usually the darts at the back are not pulled back 1 inch. They are just simply sewn just the way they exist. So you can see that after copying my foundation, I copied the dart points from the foundation, and I simply drafted my darts to the dart legs, to the notch points. After I do this, I'm ready to start balancing. Why do we need to balance patterns with each other? Obviously, we understand that if I have a bodice foundation, that's the base of my collection, or one of the major foundations that I use to create the different designs. That could be a torso foundation, or a jacket foundation, or some other foundations. What I have to do is I have to fix them, balance them properly, making sure that there are no mistakes embedded in the construction of those foundations. So when I develop my collection, those mistakes will not go into my collection and make my collection bad. To start with, I need to double check if my back neckline is 90 degrees to my center back line. As you can see, I have a slight problem in here. So I draft about 1 inch square line going from one of the lines on my ruler to here. So that creates a perfect square line. You can do this with one of your square ruler. This line is most of the time is about 1 inch, and then I go down at the waistline. I do the same thing at the waistline, and draft the same length line here, and I should know that this is 90° as well. The same thing applies to the front bodice, where the neckline has to be 90° also, and that line is not as long as the back neckline, say about 1/4 inch line will do. And then I go down to the center front waistline, and this line could be about 1/2 inch long, and again a square line. This is 90° line. After I do that, now I'm going to start checking my foundations against each other, starting from the neckline. In order for me to do that, I'm going to fold my front shoulder, place it against the back, and you can put a piece of tape in there so they don't move. Now, as you can see, I'm looking at my neckline going from the center back 90° over the shoulder, where I have a slight breakage here, and going to the front here, going to the front at the center front, and again ending up in 90° line. 90° line means the center front is straight when it's placed on the human neckline or on the dress form, and the center back is 90°, and that's a straight line also. So I don't have any heart shapes or V shapes in those places. Now, let's assume here I have a slight problem here. As you can see, my neckline is not very smooth, and if I place my ruler like this at the breakage, I will be able to fix my line to make it much smoother. So imagine if I didn't fix this and I was ready to stitch a collar to my neckline, here at this point my shoulder will pull. So I prevented that from happening by just doing this. Now the neckline is done. Let's go to the shoulder. When I'm at the shoulder, like this, I can see that my shoulder here is matching to the back shoulder, where right here it comes to the dart. We understand that this dart is going to be closed, sewn closed. So we jump over the dart, matching with the other leg, and we look at the shoulder to see if the shoulders are matching or not. Let's say if the shoulders were not matching, if let's say the front was longer, back was short, we would be making them even by cutting from the long side and adding to the short side. But at this point, my shoulders are doing okay, but you can see this V-ish line here, and in order for me to fix it, I will place my French curve like this, and I would fix it like that. Now please look at my armholes coming from the back, going to the front. Now that line is pretty smooth. I'm creating a good base for my sleeve to go into that armhole and act properly, so I don't have any pulls at the shoulder. Now, after fixing my neckline, shoulder, now I am at the armhole. The correct armhole, as I mentioned before, should look like a horseshoe. So if I fold my side seam and place my armholes against each other, I am expecting to see an egg shape or a horseshoe shape. Let's say if I had a breakage here, I should be fixing it. Okay, so let's say if I had a slight breakage here, I would fixing it, And also, in a second, before I do that, in a second, I am going to place my front armhole on top of the back armhole and walk those lines on top of each other to see the difference between them. Initially, what I would like to see is my back armhole should be 1/2 inch longer from my armhole, so my shoulder seam stays where it should be. In order for me to do that, I am going to I don't know if you can see that through the camera, but when you look at the paper, you should be able to see that my side seams are right on top of each other right now. So I am walking by placing my lines on top of each other and moving with small increments. This is called walking. So I'm walking my armholes on top of each other. You can measure them also with your tape if you wanted to. And after I walk my patterns, my armholes, okay, so I get to the point where my front stops. It is shorter than my back, and with my tracing wheel, I'm going to leave some needle marks there. Now, so when I put my front and walked on my back armhole, now I have an inch difference. 1 inch difference is too much. If I don't fix it, if you remember on the picture that I showed you in the book, you will be having a little kind of pucker right here at the shoulder. In order for me to prevent that from happening, I need to balance my armhole. What does that mean? Let's say somebody can say, okay, why can't you just simply connect it to the neckline, cut this, say 1/2 inch off, and it will be fixed? Yes and no, because yes, if you chopped off 1/2 inch from the shoulder, it will eliminate the measurement. As I said, I want my back armhole to be 1/2 inch longer than my front. But the problem is that meanwhile I'm trying to fix that problem, I'm adding another problem, which is making a pucker in my shoulder at the back armhole. So what do I do then? Then I take that extra 1/2 inch, that extra 1/2 inch should be eliminated. So here's what I would do. I'm going to cut only 1/8 inch from the back shoulder. I'm gonna cut 1/8 inch from the shoulder, back shoulder, and I'm going to add that same 1/8 inch at the front armhole at the shoulder. So that will balance 1/4 inch for me. Then I am going to go and fix my problem in some other places also. Actually in as many places as possible, because I don't want to lose the proportion of my patterns. So then I'm going to cut from the long side, which is my back armhole. I'm still eliminating some measurements. I can cut 1/8 inch also from the back and add to the front. So add 1/8 inch to the front. Here's how I do it. At the shoulder, I needed to cut, since my back armhole is longer side, so I have to cut 1/8 inch from there. In order for me to do that, you see I have a dart on my way. I cannot cut it through the dart. I should be folding my dart. Since it is a vertical dart, I'm going to push the intake of the dart towards the center back, as we always do with the front when we deal with it. You see here, I fold my dart, and at the same time, I also want to double check to see in case my shoulder is broken. So don't crush the paper, let it be, and you are going to draft over the shoulder by cutting 1/8 inch from here. Meanwhile, your dart is sitting folded like this. Okay, since my dart is sitting folded here, I am going to cut my new shoulder line by creating my new dart leg. Okay, you see that's a clean shoulder now. So then we said, since the back armhole is longer, I'm going to eliminate some from that part. Please note that while I'm cutting 1/8 of an inch from the armhole, I come to 0 the waistline. So my waistline is not the problem, my armhole is the problem. Therefore, I'm going to eliminate 1/8 of an inch from that part, and in a second I'm going to cut it also. So meanwhile we cut in 2 places at the back, we're going to add in 2 other places at the front. Say we want to add 1/8 of an inch to the front shoulder while the neckline is 0. Okay, so you see the neckline is 0. I don't touch the neckline. I just elongate my front armhole, which is going to be connected to the new line like this. So then also I am supposed to add at the side seam a little bit, which goes to the waistline into 0 measurement. It's 0 here. So 1/8 of an inch here, and at the front armhole, usually I have 1/2 an inch straight line. Also only at the front, not at the back. This is 90° here also. There. So by doing this, if you look at them next to each other, again, you can see that I cut from the back armhole and at the side seam also. I cut altogether 1/4 inch. That means I eliminated 1/4 inch of my extra 1/2 an inch available in there, and then by adding 1/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch here to the front armhole, I eliminated that 1/2 an inch completely. So if, let's say, my situation was opposite, where my front was too long, I will be cutting from the long front and giving to the back. Okay, so far we fixed the neckline, the shoulder, then we balanced the armhole. Now the next step is the side seam. So I came back again and placed my front side seam, new front side seam, against the new back side seam, like this. You can add temporary tapes here, so you can work, you can use your hands to work. Now, when I put them together like this, I see my armhole really looks like a horseshoe, so I'm glad. As you can see, my straight line here at the front also helps to smooth out my armhole line under arm point. Now look at the side seam. I have a different problem in here. As you can see, my front side seam is too long compared to my back. It's okay, I'm going to be able to fix it. Fixing means balancing it, okay? Means, how do I balance here? You see, if the difference between my front and back is about 3/8 of an inch, that 3/8 of an inch is going to be divided by 2, where again, a certain amount of measurement, which is this, is going to be cut from the front waistline, and the same amount should be added to the back waistline. As you can see, on both pieces, I have darts on my way. I cannot just step over and cut through them and destroy my dart tails. So what should I do? First of all, I'm going to finalize my dart at the front, which means my apex point is not my dart point. So first of all, I'm going to create my dart point, and by pulling it back 1 inch and drafting my final dart legs. This is where I stitch my dart to, not to the apex. Apex is usually used for manipulations and pattern constructions. Now, once my new pattern is drafted, I'm going to fold my darts intake towards the center front because it's a vertical dart, and fold my dart into place crisply, okay? So again, don't crush the paper and go straight to the dart point like this and tape it closed. And my back dart, which is again a vertical dart, and the intake of the dart is going to be folded towards the front, again like this. And again, let the paper be and tape it. You see here, you clearly can see my breakage of the waistline. As you can imagine, if I put this on a human being or on a dress form, and if I didn't fix this, first of all, my side seam would not work. Second of all, this broken line is going to create a very weird waistline. I want the waistline to be smooth, as my armholes were smooth. Okay, in that case, what I do is placing my hip curve. Please note that my hip curve tail is towards the center front, and I go back and forth until I catch my 1/2 inch straight line. I go as close as possible to my dart, and I catch the newly made midpoint, and I am going to be drafting a new waistline here for me. You see, like that. Now I am switching my ruler. Now the tail goes always towards the 90-degree line, to the center. So my ruler goes back like this, where my tail is at the center back, and I need to catch the 1 inch straight line there and go as close as possible to the end of the dart. And finally, I would like to catch this line that I drafted at the side seam. So now this is going to be my new waistline dart at the back. So when I put this together, I need to be able to see a smooth line here going smoothly at the waistline. I can fix my waistline a little bit further by creating a curvy line like this. Now I'm sure you would like the second line better, where you again start from the 90-degree line, go smoothly to the side seam, and then end up at the square corner of the back waistline. Now I'm going to hold my blocks in this situation, and I'm going to cut my new waistline. So when I do it, as you can see, I came up with a nice and crispy dart tail. Here I have a little tip sticking out, and my new back dart tail. The shape of dart tails are important to be fixed. So here you can see that I came up with my balanced front and back. When I was cutting my neckline, I found out that I missed one point to demonstrate for you while I was at the neckline. You see, also, besides fixing the shoulder point, I also needed to fix here at the back, where I will place my ruler necessarily just in this position and then connect it to the fixed shoulder point, like this. You see, I have a little problem in there that I fixed it with this line. If I didn't notice it, it will go into my pattern and most probably will make my neckline little bit different. Can you see the reason I didn't notice this before? Because this neckline was not too bad. Right now, since I was drafting it, I realized that there was a mistake. So can you see it's not a problem when you do a mistake? Because when you know how to do things, you will catch it at the end and you would fix it. Let's say if I had that kind of neckline problem here at the front, I should be placing my ruler in this position and fix it. Can you see again? The reason my eye didn't catch the problem is because my necklines happen to be pretty nice. Okay? You see, the beauty of flat pattern making is that we can balance, we can check, we can walk our patterns, and when we draft them correctly and balance them correctly, we can look at them in flat position, in two-dimensional position, and we can tell that 95% these blocks are going to work properly. Let's put it on the form and take a look. You don't necessarily have to tape the blocks to each other, but I did it so you can see the fit of this foundation. I have to mention that this foundation was most probably made on another form. That's why right there my apex is kind of slightly higher. But other than that, you see the neckline is a little bit lower from the neck, that's correct. The waistline is matching to the bottom of the tape. My shoulder seam is balanced and matching to the shoulder seam of the form. My armhole is oval, doesn't have any puckering, and my side seam is matching to the side seam. It's running against the side seam, and the back also, the center back to the center back, and that concludes my balancing for you, where you cannot see any ripples on the surface of my foundations also. So now let me place these patterns, my foundations, on a manila paper, and this will conclude my demonstration for you. Okay, so I cut a piece of manila paper and I'm getting ready to put my foundations on this paper. Since this is kind of like rolling, I am going to roll my manila paper on the opposite direction and it will go flat. So then I am going to place my front and back foundations on manila paper because manila paper is harder, so it's easy to copy. Can you see, sometimes people get confused when they see any pattern just goes on dotted paper. They can't understand that this is also foundation. When they see something placed on a dotted manila paper, then they think that this is a foundation. But the thing is that, can you see, this is my foundation already. But the reason I put this on manila paper is because manila paper is harder and it's easy to copy. And what am I going to do is I'm going to take good care of my foundation because this is already balanced. Each and every time I need to develop a blouse, a top, my foundations are ready to go, where I know that there's no any embedded mistakes in there. What I need to do right now is nicely flatten my dotted paper on the surface of the manila paper and staple like this. Please don't use like 20 staples. A few of them will do. Just you're stapling to keep your paper stable on the manila paper. And I'm going to carefully cut. You see, when I'm cutting manila paper, I need to fold the beginning of my paper with my left hand so my scissors can move easily so they don't get stuck between two sides of the paper. When I come to the neckline, meaning a curvy line, then I'm going to be cutting my paper by rotating it with my other hand and carefully pushing it away from my shears so I can easily and smoothly go through the paper. Okay, so then here I am at the armhole, staple again, continue cutting. So I'm done with placing my dotted paper foundation on manila paper and cutting smoothly as possible. Now I am ready to notch my patterns and finalize them. So I put the dart leg notches. All dart legs are going to be notched. And they're always notched. Now, the armhole notch should be checked to see if it's correct. Usually the notches are placed 3 inches up on the armhole. You see, there is a little bit mistake in here that I want to fix. You see, that's 3 inch and then ½ inch down. That will be my notch placement. So this distance is 3 inches. Actually, these notches are a little bit flexible. We can go up and down. So I changed the position of my armhole notch here also. My armhole front notch, which is a single notch, symbolizes the front. I am working with my tape to see if it's 3 inches away from the side seam. So it's not. I'm fixing a new and placing a new notch right there. So if you want to erase the old ones so you're not getting confused, you can do that. Now, so pretty much those are my points. Now, usually I will put my punch holes here at the apex because I am always copying my block with the apex for dart manipulation. In case I need to copy my dart point, I am going to punch one dart point also. In contrast with the regular patterns, when usually we go half an inch down from the dart point to get the punch hole, can you see these are foundations, these are not patterns, these are not going to be sewn. Therefore, we don't go half an inch down and punch. The punch hole is sewing, the punch hole is a sewing instruction. But my foundation punch holes are always copied for construction purposes. That's why I want to punch the points of the darts for me to be able to quickly copy them. I can mark them so I can see them easily, find them easily. Here, and again, this is my dart point. If you want to mark, not to forget, you can do that. I can place a straight line against my center front about 1 inch away to show that this is usually the direction that we cut the patterns. Also, we practice to remember where the grain lines go, and they should be drafted with a ruler, always not by hand. So I use my straight ruler to draft them. Now I am going to mark, label my foundations. I say back, bodice, and this is a foundation. Usually we cut two because at the back usually we put a zipper, but later on if you choose to have front opening, that's a different thing. Now say this is my front bodice, and I forgot to put my size. This is my size 8 and cut 2, and this is my front bodice foundation, size 8, and usually we cut 1. And this completes my demonstration for you. So from this point on, you are going to be using your balanced bodice foundation, which is more trustworthy than whatever I had, let's say, before. Same thing most probably will happen with you. Try to balance it properly, have a great time with it, and get fantastic garment based on this foundation. This concludes my demonstration for you on balancing bodice front and back.